What happens when ambition collides with billions of dollars and the promise of building the future from scratch? Not just offices, not just neighborhoods, but entire cities and structures are so vast they claim to reshape nations, economies, and even history itself. Before we uncover the secrets behind these staggering creations, make sure you subscribe and join us because what you're about to see is more than steel and concrete. These are monuments of power, vision, and risk. Projects so bold, they leave the world to wonder if the gamble will ever pay off. What does the world's most valuable company build when money is no object? Not a skyscraper, not a fortress, but a spaceship planted firmly in the middle of California. Officially known as Apple Park, the headquarters of Apple Inc. is one of the most ambitious corporate projects ever attempted. It is a ring of glass, steel, and concrete, so vast that it reshaped not only its own campus, but the city of Cupertino itself. The story begins in 2011, when Steve Jobs, already in failing health, presented his vision to the Cupertino City Council. His delivery was sharp, his ambition unmistakable. Jobs wasn't pitching a building, he was presenting a philosophy. He wanted a single circular campus, so futuristic and so precise that it could only be described as a spaceship. Apple had the cash, $80 billion at the time, and Jobs wanted to invest it in permanence. In an industry defined by rapid obsolescence, here was a headquarters meant to last for generations. The design brief bordered on impossible. Engineers and architects were instructed to create the largest curved glass panels ever manufactured. Concrete slabs were poured and ground with tolerances tighter than the thickness of a credit card. Door handles were milled from solid aluminum until their curvature felt unmistakably Apple. Even the wood for conference tables was quarter sawn maple, the grain aligned perfectly edge to edge. Contractors struggled, artisans were flown in from Europe and Asia, and costs ballooned. Stories leaked of entire factories built solely to bend Apple's custom glass. Jobs died only months after unveiling the project, but his vision carried further. Apple Park rose from old orchards, a $5 billion ring that embodied not only architecture, but philosophy. It floats on nearly 700 seismic isolators designed to allow the entire building to glide during earthquakes. It hides 14,000 parking spaces underground so that the landscape above can be filled with 9,000 trees. Its rooftop bristles with solar panels capable of generating 17 megawatts of power, one of the largest corporate solar arrays on Earth. Even the ventilation system was custom designed, costing hundreds of millions, to ensure that the building could breathe naturally without constant air conditioning. Inside, nothing was left to chance. Cafeterias capable of feeding 15,000 employees, chairs rumored to cost $14,000 each, a custom auditorium, the Steve Jobs Theater, with a carbon fiber roof and subterranean chamber so advanced it alone cost $180 million. Every September, this theater becomes the most valuable stage in the world, where new iPhones are revealed, generating tens of billions in revenue within weeks. Apple Park is not just a workplace, it is a monument to detail, to obsession, to the idea that design is destiny. It costs more than the GDP of some nations, but for Apple, it was a statement that the company's dominance was not fleeting, that its presence was as permanent as the concrete slabs beneath its ring. But Apple's spaceship is only one kind of ambition. What happens when it is not a company spending billions, but an entire nation pouring over $300 billion into building a city from scratch? For that answer, we must travel to China. Southwest of Beijing, where fields of wheat once swayed and fishermen tended to the marshlands of Baiyangdian Lake, a city is being engineered into existence that did not even appear on maps a decade ago. Its name is Yong'an New Area, and it is unlike almost any city the world has ever seen. Officially declared in 2017, it was branded not as another development zone, not even as the next Shenzhen or next Pudong, but as a millennium strategy, a place designed to endure for 1,000 years. The ambition was born from necessity. Beijing, one of the world's great capitals, is suffocating under its own gravity. With more than 20 million people and an economy that pulls everything into its orbit, the city has grown so congested that traffic jams can last for hours, pollution regularly chokes its skies, and housing prices spiral out of reach. Ministries, embassies, Research institutes, universities, and corporate headquarters all crowd into its heart, making even small administrative tasks unbearably slow. China's answer was radical: relocate much of this administrative and institutional weight to a brand new city, one planned with such precision that chaos could never take root. Xiong'an, 100 kilometers southwest of Beijing, would absorb these non-core functions. It would be a pressure valve for the capital, but also a prototype for the future of Chinese urbanism. The scale is staggering: more than 2.4 trillion yuan. Over $330 billion is being funneled into land that was once farmland and villages. Unlike Beijing, which evolved organically over centuries, Xiong'an is being drawn like a blueprint brought to life. Its avenues are broad, its sidewalks generous, it's building space deliberately so that the city feels more like a circuit board than a metropolis. Regulations mandate that 70% of the land remain lakes, forests, wetlands, or farmland. This is not decorative, it is structural. Biangdian Lake, once polluted and shrinking, is being restored as the city's ecological heart. Smart sensors monitor everything from stormwater flows to energy use, while underground utility corridors keep wires and pipes in neat, accessible tunnels. Cameras and AI systems regulate traffic in real time. Even street lamps are designed to double as data nodes, feeding streams of information into centralized platforms. Connectivity is its backbone. High-speed rail links Xiong'an to Beijing in less than an hour, and to the $11 billion Daxing International Airport in only 30 minutes. It sits at the heart of the Beijing-Tianjin-Hebei integration plan, meant to rebalance an entire region, tethering the political weight of Beijing, the industrial strength of Hebei, and the maritime reach of Tianjin. On paper, it is dazzling, but in reality, Xiong'an is still a paradox. Districts are built, but many remain underpopulated. Entire plazas and boulevards gleam, waiting for crowds that never arrive. Apartments stand completed but empty, their windows reflecting silence. Public parks stretch for kilometers, yet they host more caretakers than families. It is at once a city and a stage, constructed in full but still waiting for its actors to step in. To its champions, this is deliberate. Xiong'an is a 100-year project, a city not meant to be rushed but to unfold slowly, layer by layer, over generations. To its critics, it risks becoming another sterile ghost city, a vision of perfection undermined by the absence of life. Xiong'an embodies a question that resonates far beyond China. Can you design destiny on a drafting board? Can a city truly thrive when born not from people but from decree? The answer will not be clear for decades, perhaps centuries. But already, the stakes are global. If it succeeds, Xiong'an may stand as the blueprint for how nations facing overpopulation and climate stress can build a future from scratch. If it fails, it may join the long list of monuments to ambition outpacing reality. And China is not alone in taking such audacious bets. Just across the Strait of Johor, Malaysia embarked on its own city of the future, a $100 billion megaproject built from sand and sea. Where Xiong'an is still waiting for its residents to arrive, Malaysia's forest city may have already revealed its fate, a glittering ghost town. On the southern tip of Malaysia, across a narrow stretch of water from one of the most densely populated nations on Earth, stands one of the most expensive real estate projects in history, and one of the most haunting. Forest City, a $100 billion megacity built on artificial islands in Johor, was supposed to house nearly 1 million people. Instead, less than a decade after its launch, it has become a silent skyline, a futuristic dream turned ghost city. Launched in 2016 by Country Garden Holdings, one of China's largest developers, and backed by the Sultan of Johor, Forest City was marketed as nothing less than a utopia. The plans were audacious: 4 man-made islands, carved out of the sea, covered with glass and steel towers, luxury villas, shopping malls, international schools, and marinas filled with yachts. Glossy brochures depicted an eco-friendly paradise with boulevards lined with greenery and technology woven into every layer of life. At its peak, investors were promised not just homes, but lifestyles, tax-free zones, preferential policies, even the possibility of Malaysian residency. The target audience was clear: not Malaysians, not even Singaporeans across the strait, but wealthy middle-class investors from China. For them, Forest City was pitched as an offshore escape, a glittering enclave just minutes from Singapore's booming financial hub. Sales offices across China reported thousands of units sold on paper long before the towers were finished. Billboards proclaimed the city almost sold out. But reality unfolded very differently. Local communities protested as mangrove forests were bulldozed to reclaim land. Fishermen complained that sand dredging disrupted their livelihoods. Environmental groups warned that the artificial islands were unstable and ecologically devastating. The project pressed forward anyway, but the contradictions mounted. Behind luxury towers and manicured boulevards lurked oil refineries, crocodile-infested waters, and industrial skylines, hardly the paradise promised in brochures. Then politics shifted. After the fall of Prime Minister Najib Razak in 2018, Malaysia's new leadership denounced Forest City as a foreign enclave that risked turning Johor into a colony for outsiders. At the same time, China tightened controls on overseas property investment, choking the flow of capital that had fueled the project. And then came the pandemic. Travel restrictions slammed the brakes on international sales. The investor base collapsed almost overnight. Today, Forest City feels surreal. Its towers glisten under the tropical sun, infinity pools shimmer, and boulevards are lined with palm trees, but at night, only a handful of windows glow. Hotels advertise full bookings online, yet their lobbies remain eerily still. Restaurants close months after opening. Maintenance fees rise while infrastructure already begins to decay, leaving owners frustrated and trapped in apartments they cannot resell. The paradox is sharp. Forest City was built across the water from Singapore, a nation bursting with density and demand, yet it stands nearly empty. It reveals a fundamental truth. Cities cannot be conjured into life with money alone. Without grounded need, without integration into existing communities and economies, ambition hardens into emptiness. For Malaysia, it has become a cautionary tale. What was marketed as a symbol of prosperity is now remembered as one of the world's most expensive ghost cities, a $100 billion monument to miscalculation. But Malaysia is not alone in discovering the limits of ambition. In the deserts of Saudi Arabia, another nation poured more than $200 billion into a city designed to rival Dubai and Singapore, with a port that became a global success, but neighborhoods that never filled. King Abdullah Economic City, KAEC as it is known, was not meant to be just another development on a map. When it was launched in 2005, it was announced as nothing less than the future of Saudi Arabia, a monument to reinvention as the oil age waned. With a price tag of 207 billion rials, over 55 billion US dollars at the time, it was envisioned as a glittering megacity on the Red Sea, a rival to Dubai, Singapore, and even Shanghai. It was to house 2 million people, employ a million more, and show the world that the kingdom's wealth could not just buy skyscrapers, but a whole new way of life. The choice of geography was deliberate. KAEC sprawls across 173 square kilometers of desert coastline, strategically positioned near the maritime arteries of the Suez Canal. From here, the great shipping lanes of the world pass within reach, carrying goods between Asia, Europe, and Africa. The logic was simple. If Saudi Arabia could anchor itself on this Red Sea corridor, it could insert itself into the very bloodstream of the global trade. The blueprint for KAEC reads like an urban manifesto. 6 integrated zones would rise from sand and sea, an industrial valley stretching over 55 million square meters designed to lure 2,700 companies into its orbit, a financial district filled with gleaming towers and Class A office space intended to rival Dubai's DIFC, a sprawling educational city linked to the $20 billion endowed King Abdullah University of Science and Technology nearby, luxury resorts and golf courses to attract global tourism, and residential neighborhoods capable of housing 2 million people across all income levels, from affordable apartments to exclusive seaside villas. At its heart stood the jewel, King Abdullah Port. Here at least, the vision materialized. Opened in 2019, the port was hailed by the World Bank as the most efficient in the world. With berth depths of 18 meters, it could swallow the largest container ships afloat. With smart gate systems, AI-driven logistics, and capacity for 25 million containers annually, it rivaled and in some measures surpassed Dubai's famed Jebel Ali port. For Saudi Arabia, this was not merely infrastructure. It was prestige, a way of saying the kingdom can build world-class nodes of trade, and it can do so privately. King Abdullah Port was the first port in the Middle East to be developed and operated outside direct government control. Yet beyond the humming cranes and stacked containers, the city around the port never came alive. Streets lined with palm trees remained quiet, manicured avenues stretched into silence, neighborhoods with names like Bela Sun, Esmeralda, and Al Waha looked pristine in brochures, but at night only a handful of homes were lit. A city designed for 2 million residents barely scraped past 10,000. Luxury villas sat empty, their prices pitched beyond the reach of ordinary Saudis. And even those who found jobs in KAEC often chose not to live there. Instead, they commuted from Jeddah, just 30 minutes away by high-speed rail. The very infrastructure that was meant to connect KAEC became the mechanism that undermined it. Why relocate when you can simply visit for work and return to the familiar vibrancy of Jeddah by evening? KAEC became a paradox. Its infrastructure was real, polished, and impressive. Its port thrived. Its golf courses gleamed under the desert sun. Yet its plazas echoed. Its neighborhoods remained hollow. It was, in a sense, a city without a heartbeat. A blueprint that had forgotten the most important ingredient: people. Then came NEOM. Announced in 2017, NEOM seized the global imagination in ways KAEC never could. The Line, a 170-kilometer car-free linear city designed for 9 million residents. Oxagon, the world's largest floating industrial hub powered by AI. Trojena, a futuristic mountain resort promising year-round skiing in the desert. These visions bordered on science fiction, and they commanded headlines worldwide. Compared to them, KAEC suddenly looked conventional, almost quaint. It was yesterday's dream, overshadowed by bolder, flashier successors. What was once Saudi Arabia's crown jewel now risks being remembered as a relic. A transitional experiment on the kingdom's road to Vision 2030. Its port may endure as a logistical triumph, but its cityscape stands as a sobering reminder. Steel and concrete can be built on schedule, but the soul of a city cannot be summoned by decree. If Saudi Arabia's desert dream is haunted by emptiness, Egypt's is haunted by urgency. To understand why, one must look first at Cairo, a metropolis of over 22 million people, one of the most historic and chaotic cities on Earth. Cairo's growth has been relentless. In 1950, its population was just 2.5 million. By 2050, demographers warn it could swell to nearly 40 million. Its streets already choke with perpetual gridlock, traffic jams stretching for miles. A toxic haze hangs over its skyline, contributing to thousands of premature deaths each year. Housing crumbles under the pressure, service collapses under demand, and ministries clustered around Tahrir Square are paralyzed by density and by protest. For President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the message was stark: Cairo is suffering. The solution was unveiled in 2015 at a conference in Sharm el-Sheikh, the new administrative capital. Twice the size of Singapore, 700 kilometers of desert east of Cairo, designed to rehouse the government, absorb millions of residents, and showcase Egypt's modern ambitions. On paper, the NAC is breathtaking. Ministries, parliament, and presidential palaces rise from sand. The Octagon, an immense military headquarters dwarfing even the Pentagon, anchors the city's geometry and its symbolism. Africa's tallest skyscraper, the 1,300-foot iconic tower, pierces the skyline. A man-made green river, twice the size of Central Park, snakes through its center, lined with residential residents, commercial hubs, and cultural landmarks. Religious symbolism looms large. The Cathedral of the Nativity of Christ, the largest in the Middle East, and the Egyptian Grand Mosque, able to hold more than 100,000 worshippers, dominate the spiritual landscape. It is branded as a smart city. Fiber optic networks, AI-driven utilities, autonomous traffic management, and more than 6,000 surveillance cameras tracking every movement. For supporters, this is modernization, a leap into the future. For critics, it is something darker, a fortress of control. By moving power out of Cairo, the government distances itself from the relentless energy of Tahrir Square, where protests once toppled regimes. Wide boulevards, heavy surveillance, and vast open spaces ensure that crowds can no longer gather so close to power. In this light, the NAC is less a city and more a defensive strategy, a capital engineered to prevent another revolution. Its costs are staggering, more than $58 billion, in a country where inflation ravages income, debt weighs heavily, and poverty affects millions. Apartments in the NAC average around $50,000. far beyond the reach of ordinary Egyptians whose annual income hovers around $3,000. The promise of social housing remains vague. Ministries have begun relocating, but many employees commute from Cairo on new trains, turning the NAC into a daytime office park, gleaming by day but hushed by night. The optics are troubling. On one side, skyscrapers and presidential palaces rise from desert sand. On the other, Egyptians struggle with rolling blackouts, shrinking incomes, and rising food prices. Critics argue that the NAC is not built for the people, but for the military elite, who can control the company that develops and profits from the project. Reports of a vast new presidential palace, complete with a so-called throne hall, have only deepened the perception that the NAC is more about power than relief. History offers a warning. Egypt has built new cities before. 6th of October City, New Cairo, Sheikh Zayed, each designed to relieve Cairo's weight. Most became ghostly suburbs, populated only by the wealthy, their streets lined with empty buildings. The NAC risks repeating the same mistake, only on a far larger scale. It could become another Naypyidaw, Myanmar's eerie, half-empty capital, remembered more for its emptiness than for its function. And yet the dream persists. Supporters argue that Egypt has no choice. With over 1 million new citizens born each year, incremental fixes will never suffice. A new city, they say, is the only solution. Whether the NAC thrives or withers remains to be seen. For now, it is both a real city, rising, but shadowed by controversy. Egypt, one of the world's oldest civilizations, famous for monuments that have endured millennia, is once again building a monument. But this time, instead of pyramids of stone, it is towers of glass and steel in the desert. The question lingers. Will they stand as symbols of progress or as a mirage of ambition outpacing reality? Apple Park, Xiong'an, Forest City, KAEC, Egypt's new capital, each reveals a different face of ambition. Apple's corporate perfection, China's state experiment, Malaysia's collapse, Saudi Arabia's overshadowed dream, Egypt's fortress of power. Together, they show that megaprojects are not simply about buildings. They're about identity, control, and the stories nations and companies tell about themselves. What they share is scale, secrecy, and staggering cost. What separates them is the outcome. Apple Park thrives, justifying itself in billions of revenue. Xiong'an waits, still half-born. Forest City empties, its towers echoing. KAEC functions only as a port, its city hollow. Egypt's new capital gleams, but its heart remains uncertain. Megaprojects are humanity's most daring gambles. They promise futures we dream of, but they also risk becoming monuments to hubris. Some will succeed, others will crumble, but all are mirrors of who we are: impatient, ambitious, and willing to gamble billions in search of permanence. In the end, the question is not whether these projects are marvels or follies, it is whether we will learn from them. Are these the blueprints of tomorrow, or the ruins of dreams too vast for reality to hold? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching this video with us, and catch you in the next one.